They dropped missiles deep inside Israel. They destroyed 6 enemy tanks. So 2 Merkava tanks entered into the South Lebanese territory. And when 4 Merkava tanks from the IDF came in to try and get those 2 that were destroyed out of the territory back into Israel, those 4 tanks were then hit by the Lebanese resistance. Well, it's morning time in Iran again, and we are currently witnessing a massive series of strikes on the Zionist entity. Yesterday, we saw strikes all across the region again, huge strikes on Kuwait, on Bahrain, on the UAE, oil and gas infrastructure in the UAE. But one thing I want to talk about is really the way in which Iran has opened up, in part, a 2-front war. No one thought that the Lebanese resistance still had it in them. We heard countlessly from Zionist media, from Arab media, from even, experts on the Lebanese resistance, which is Hezbollah, that Hezbollah was severely weakened, that they were long gone, that they didn't have any resources, and that everything was over practically in Lebanon, right? We know for a fact that for 15 months, as the Lebanese-Israeli ceasefire went into effect, we saw the Israelis violate it on a day-to-day basis with airstrikes, drone strikes, even small incursions into Lebanese territory. And this was met with absolute no resistance and no response from Hezbollah in Lebanon. We even saw that as per the disarmament agreement that was installed by the Israelis and the Lebanese authorities under the leadership of Joseph Ayoun in Lebanon, that Hezbollah, which they agreed to do this, moved their military assets out of the south of Lebanon, south of the Litani River. But something very interesting happened after the airstrike, which caused the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei. We saw that the Lebanese resistance, Hezbollah, launched several drone strikes on Israeli territory in the north, in the Galilee region. A lot of people saw this and realized that immediately Israel was going to target Beirut and Lebanon as a whole with massive airstrikes. And a lot of people said, well, maybe Hezbollah should not have done this, because if they're so weak, why would they poke and prod at the bear? My initial response to that was, well, you can't really expect them to think like this. Lebanon, Hezbollah, these are morally righteous people in the best way, not in a sanctimonious way, but in a way that says, if you try to dishonor us, if you take the life of this 86-year-old man, a beloved leader that has a very special relationship with the Shia of Lebanon, you cannot expect that there will be no response. But actually, it was much different than all of that. I think everyone got it wrong, myself included. I definitely was one of the many who believed that, the resistance in Lebanon was weakened to the point where they probably would not be in a position to carry out a protracted conflict or a second front against the Zionist entity in a war like this. But we were all wrong, because since those initial strikes took place that the Lebanese resistance carried out, we of course did see the Israelis carry out massive bombardment campaigns in Lebanon, in Beirut, and Al-Dahia, the south of Beirut. And we even saw 12-story buildings get eviscerated in seconds. One of which was very appropriately, I guess, it's almost comical. The Israeli regime, they bombed a 12-story building. It's the one where it just sinks down into the ground. It's one of the most incredible videos I've seen since October 7th of 2023. And what did they target? They targeted an interest-free credit nonprofit institution that gives interest-free loans to the Shia community in Lebanon. So these are the targets that they're hitting. They're hitting plenty of civilian targets. Even Israeli authorities speaking to Hebrew media have said that hopefully they can force the Lebanese government into a position where they will begin actually prosecuting and arresting Hezbollah leadership if we hit enough civilian targets in Lebanon, right? Twist their arm. It's incredible, but not surprising at the very least, okay? But what we've seen since then has really shocked a lot of people. It shocked a lot of people. You know, the videos you see of the IDF soldiers when they're fighting the Lebanese resistance in prior wars, they say, you know, we're fighting the Nasrallah's ghosts. We're fighting ghost soldiers. We can't see them, but they're everywhere, right? This is the same sort of attitude that we're now hearing from the Israelis, because the sons of Nasrallah, the ghosts of Nasrallah, are once again taking a lot of action and exhibiting very, very impressive firepower in this second front of the war. For example, 2 days ago, I want to run through a few of the operations that Hezbollah carried out. They hit the Haifa port. They dropped missiles deep inside Israel. They destroyed 6 enemy tanks. So 2 Merkava tanks entered into the South Lebanese territory. And when 4 Merkava tanks from the IDF came in to try and get those 2 that were destroyed out of the territory back into Israel, those 4 tanks were then hit by the Lebanese resistance. So 6 in total. The Lebanese struck a gathering of IDF soldiers and launched drone attacks on Israel as well. So whoever thought that Hezbollah was finished and that, you know, there was nothing more to be seen from the Lebanese resistance, I guess the story is not done yet. Because over the past 24 hours, so yesterday, we saw even more firepower from Hezbollah. We saw that they targeted Israeli troops in the Galilee region with rocket fire. They targeted the Yara barracks with a swarm of attack drones. They targeted the military and industries complex of the Rafael company, big Israeli military industrial firm. And they did this in the south of the city of Acre with rocket fire. So not just drones, right, but a lot of missiles, a lot of rocket fire and precision missiles, which is incredible. After detecting an Israeli force advancing to the town of Markaba with the aim of establishing a military position, Hezbollah targeted it with 2 rounds of rocket fire and achieved direct hits. We also see that they targeted a newly established gathering of Israeli army vehicles in Markaba with rocket fire. They targeted the Natali base west of Lake Tiberias with rocket fire. And they targeted a gathering of Israeli army vehicles in Markaba for the second time with rocket fire. So it seems to me that Hezbollah is well within the capability of, inflicting very, very painful losses, both through military assets and personnel on the IDF. I also uploaded a video yesterday of injured IDF, IOF soldiers that were being evacuated from the south of Lebanon to Haifa, to a military hospital in Haifa. So this is very important for Iran, because the way Iran sees it right now is that Israel is a secondary quest. Their main target are the U.S. military bases in the region, and also, in some cases, oil and gas assets in the region. The importance of these strikes on Israel is to bog Israel down, right? And when the Israeli Air Force is preoccupied with Lebanon, when they're preoccupied with sending their IOF and IDF troops to Lebanon, Iran has one less thing to worry about. Now, of course, Iran still is targeting Israel with strikes. As I just mentioned this morning, about 30 minutes ago, we did see that Iran had carried out a new wave of strikes on Israel. Last night, we saw a Khorramshahr 4 missile with cluster warheads launched on the Zionist entity. But the main thing here is that assets and personnel are being diverted to address the question of Lebanon instead of all firepower from the Zionist entity being focused on Israel. And I'll say one more thing. I can't say I'm that surprised in hearing all of this news and seeing all of these operations that the Lebanese are carrying out, because when I was in Lebanon, Obviously, when I was in the south of Lebanon, I didn't see any, Lebanese resistance personnel. We saw UN troops. Obviously, there right now, there's a very large contingency of Lebanese armed forces personnel. But we didn't see, there's really nothing but destruction in the south of Lebanon and a few UN tanks, right? We also, of course, saw Israeli military personnel right across the border. Well, what's so amazing about this is that a lot of these attacks and attacks on Merkava tanks are taking place south of the Litani River, which supposedly was the area that was disarmed, where Hezbollah had moved all of their assets out of the region. Apparently, that is not the case in the slightest, right? The other thing I'll say is that, again, when I was in Lebanon and we were at the funeral of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, I'm not going to say where this happened, what day this happened, but there was one instance in which the group I was with arrived late at an event that we were going to. And due to that simple fact, we had to make an entrance through a route, an entrance that really was not for the overall public. And when I made the entrance through that route, it was one of the most shocking and surprising things I'd ever seen in my life. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of Lebanese resistance soldiers that were located in the area that I made the entrance through to this place I was going. And they were all doing their prayers. They were, putting on their equipment and their uniforms and stuff like that. And very physically fit young men, predominantly, but thousands and thousands of men. And when I saw them, none of them looked discouraged. None of them looked saddened. None of them, they looked determined. That's what they looked like. They looked determined. They looked resolute. They looked ready. And I can't say I'm surprised to see this news. I really can't. Obviously, the question of personnel versus military assets, those are two separate questions. But, when there are men, you build it and they will come, as they say. So, very interesting news. The Lebanese are really dragging down the Israelis, or dragging up the Israelis into a second front. And they are not just dragging them, they are inflicting a lot of damage. And it doesn't appear to be stopping anytime soon. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.